Welcome back to Sacred Cow Barbecue, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce someone, welcome him back to the show, who has had a ringside seat for the government's perjury circus in Oregon the last month and a half. Dr. Roger Roots, welcome back to the barbecue.
Well, thanks for having me, Patricia.
It's you missed some of the fireworks today. Did you think the jury was going to be out a little longer?
Well, frankly, the jury was out for a week. I don't know how. I had actually thought that it would be quite normal for the jury to be out a day or two, but they've been out a full 7 days and more. They were given the case Wednesday night of last week, and it is now Thursday afternoon when they finally came in with a verdict. So that's, you could say they had the case for 8 days. Very, very unusual.
Yeah, what I thought was very interesting was, well, Tuesday I was worried when the jury came back with that question, if we find 3 not guilty, do we have to find the rest not guilty? That worried me. And I think it worried Lisa Bundy too. She was crying her eyes out. It kept me up. Were you concerned with that question?
Well, I think those of us who were, let's just say representing or supporting the main players in the trial, and that would be Ammon Bundy and Ryan Bundy, specifically, maybe a couple others. Shauna Cox sometimes was named as a leader, whatever that means. We were concerned, obviously, that meant the jury was going to acquit some of the defendants lower down on the indictment.
Yeah, I thought that meant Banta, Fry, and Wampler would get off, and maybe Ken Medenbach, but yeah, it worried me. But then,
well, that's been the concern throughout the entire trial.
Exactly.
Throughout the trial, we all realized that the feds were gunning for Ammon Bundy most of all, and Ryan Bundy close second.
Exactly. It's about shutting down the Bundys and making sure that no one ever supports them again.
Well, the key, I think, that came out from the trial, I was on the phone earlier with the national director of FIJA, the Fully Informed Jury Association, and she asked if I thought jury nullification was involved, and I said no. I really think the jury saw through the cloud of baloney that the prosecution put up and realized that the defendants were all being prosecuted for crimes they didn't commit.
Exactly.
They were accused.
They had to have noticed the bias. Everything that the prosecution said, the judge went along with and sustained their objections. Anything that the defense said, no, she shut it down. What was good for the prosecution, Goose, was not good for the defense, Gander. It was so obvious.
Well, that, by the way, is actually not unusual in federal criminal trials. The federal prosecutors enjoy such an advantage. The rules of evidence totally favor the government nowadays. The case law, overwhelmingly, the case law that has been built by a generation, or really 2 or 3 generations of federal judges who have just favored the government over the rights of individuals. And it's just overwhelmingly, when you're being charged and put on trial in federal court, you are up against an enormous advantage that the government has over you.
Yeah, they have a bottomless pit of money to pick from.
Well, and it's not just that. Listen, in this particular trial, these defendants were in a hostile venue. They were in Portland, Oregon. The alleged offenses allegedly occurred hundreds of miles away in rural eastern Oregon, and there's a completely different culture. If anyone who knows about the state of Oregon or the state of Washington, is about the same. The big cities on the coast are quite, let's just say, populated by people who, let's just say, they trust government more. And as you go over the mountains, the Cascade Range, over to the cattle country of eastern Oregon, you find that the culture is completely different. And so, these guys were in Portland. They were up against, just a hostile community. Let me just say that I would occasionally read some of the articles that were being written by the news reporters there in the Oregonian newspaper, just horribly favoring the government constantly throughout the trial. And because I was in the trial, I was literally sitting there and had a front row seat. I was able to discern that there was almost two different narratives. It was night and day. The evidence that was being presented was night and day from the way it was being depicted in the press outside.
I've seen that in anything I've ever been involved with. When it's hit the newspapers, I'm like, they don't even come close to getting it right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense, the government put on a strong case, but the defense case, we met every single allegation with evidence that refuted it.
The government did not prove their case.
Well, absolutely not. The government was alleging that these guys specifically occupied the Malheur Wildlife Refuge in near Burns, Oregon, with the specific intent, preventing U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and BLM employees from going to work. And there wasn't a single piece of evidence of that.
I read the motion that I can tell your style of writing. I know you wrote it or helped with it. We're saying, well, yeah, because they were paid not to go to work.
Well, yeah, they were paid not to go to work even before the occupation. That's another startling fact. Mm-hmm. And it's a hard fact for the government to get over, because even days before the occupation began on January 2nd, 2016, days before then, a memo had gone out telling the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service employees not to go to work. Now, How can you possibly say that it was the actions of the defendants in occupying the refuge that led to these employees not going to work, when in fact the memo says to the employees, don't go to work, and the memo is dated before the occupation.
Right. And the other thing about that is the doors were all left open. They were left the keys. If they really wanted to discourage them from taking over the refuge, there was a lot of things they could have done different. But obviously they were setting them up.
Yeah, let me just say, well, it's funny. There's competing evidence on that issue. They put on a couple of government employees, forget the guy's name, who was one of the directors of the Malheur Refuge, he testified that everything was locked up before he left. Yeah, I believe it was him, and it might have been another person also who said, "Oh yeah, we had it all locked up." So that's what they testified to. Now, the defendants, on the other hand, the testimony from their side indicates, well, no, everything was wide open. There was never any locked door that they went inside, and so it's not clear even to me exactly what happened.
Well, I think a couple of things that turned the trial around and really must have made an impression on the jurors. Well, one was Jeff Banta's point when he was on the stand and said, well, I figured it was completely lawful because it had gone on for so long, gone on for 40 days. He didn't get there till like the day before. He said, it gone on for 40 days. I figured that the police or the government would have nipped it in the bud if there was something unlawful going on. That got the jury thinking.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many, I think, points that really were crucial to the defense. Of course, Ammon Bundy's testimony when he took the stand was vital. I mean, the guy is so, let's just say, level-headed. He comes across as a very reasonable person, and he's very well read about public land law and the constitutional, the way the Constitution relates to these questions. I think anyone who listens to him speak realizes that he's very level-headed. He's a nice guy. I mean, he's just a nice guy.
Oh my gosh. Him and Lavoy Finicum were like the 1-2 punch. Really, in terms of winning people over, you can't listen to either one of them and not go, what amazing men these are. And want to hear them. The truth just oozes from them and resonates with people. And that's what they had to shut down.
Yeah, I don't think anyone who listens to Ammon for more than a few minutes would think that he is threatening or aggravating anything or escalating anything. He's a very, very sensible guy.
Right.
Even though he took a very courageous stand, I'll have to hand it to him. The stand that he took took a lot of guts. And, he was, what do they say in poker, drawing to an inside straight. He was really, the guy put his neck out there on the line, and I think a lot of those guys realized that they were making an important stand, and who knows what the future holds with regard to how the people of the future are going to view this. But I can tell you, I've just been on a website just now where Kate Brown, the governor of Oregon, has already issued a little tweet saying that I forget exactly, but disagrees completely with the jury's verdict or something, and is very disappointed in the jury. These are her own Oregonians.
Yeah.
And, so anyway, I think the government, our masters in government are already, I won't say they're panicking, but they are beginning to wonder if, in fact, they can get away with what they've been getting away with for so long.
Well, Roger, let me ask you this because a listener to the show and a Bundy supporter, he came back and said, here, I'm going to open his email now, that if there's a remnant of the King Star Chamber rules, is there any chance that these defendants can be retried at any time on these charges, or is this res judicata?
Well, fortunately, the double jeopardy clause is in the Fifth Amendment, and the founding fathers fought hard to put it there, and they cannot be retried for the same charges. Now, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of double jeopardy law, but I suppose the government could come with something else.
Well, they certainly did for the Hammonds.
Well, listen, they've spent, by some estimates, I've heard $100 million on this entire episode. When you calculate all the personnel they imposed, hundreds of federal agents swarming through Harney County, Oregon, just an immense amount of extravagant spending. I don't know. Who knows? All I know is I'm sure they're thinking of what to do next.
Yeah,
I'll just say that jury of 12. Yeah, that jury of 12 today took some wind out of their sails.
It took me an hour to stop crying. It really did. I was so happy.
I was crying as well today. I can tell you that.
Have you talked to anybody? I know Shauna talked about it on John Lamb's and also with Oregon Public Broadcasting about Mumford being tased in the courtroom.
It's conflicting whether he was tased, but he was taken to the ground and beat up. I guess during the issuance, right at the end of when the verdict was read, he demanded that Ammon be released. He's only held on a detainer from the U.S. District of Nevada, and he really is entitled to be released. And by the way, for that matter, let me just say that the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution says everyone is entitled to reasonable bail. The Bundys have been held without bail in both these U.S. districts, and the charges are not capital charges.
No, it's and I've been in court when Roger, when it's absolutely been shocking. When the magistrate judge, I was there. I've been there for most of them. Dave Bundy's case, the sheriff in his county offered to take Dave Bundy, under his personal recognizance, guarantee the court, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And you could tell Cam Fehrenbach, the magistrate, he was conflicted. I could tell by the way he was looking, he's conflicted. The prosecution's trying to make him sound like, he's Al Capone. And, Dave Bundy, he's got to be the quietest, softest spoken Bundy. You think Ammon's soft spoken. Oh my God, Ammon's a ball of fire, compared to Dave. And then at the last minute when you think, okay, he may be going to pull the trigger and let Dave go here. No, he picked up a piece of paper that was already pre-typed on his bench there and read the exact same statement that the other magistrates had read about why he couldn't be released because he was a threat to the community.
Amazing.
Yeah. I was like, I said something when the gavel went down and the marshals get all upset. But I mean, the marshal, and something else happened to David Fry today as well. What did they tackle him for?
I have received conflicting things. Someone said that they beat up David Fry. Now, he is entitled to immediate release.
Yeah.
Immediate. He needs to be released to the street. And he doesn't need to be going back to the Multnomah County Jail to be processed or anything else. He needs to be free to walk right out of the courtroom.
Yeah, exactly. Because they've been out on pretrial release.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what does this mean for the February 14th trial? Will that get dismissed, or are they going to put this dog and pony show on again?
I'm pretty sure that they will commence with that. It does take some wind out of their sails. I mean, it really changes the momentum.
Yeah, and to come back so quickly. Now, the BLM juror, did the judge really try to say it was the defendant's fault that the BLM juror was on the jury, that they had an opportunity to get rid of him?
Well, I can just tell you this because I was sort of, I was with many others during that time when the jury was being selected. I won't go into deep details about that, but I'll just say that when you're selecting a juror and you look at his package or his jacket, and sometimes you say, well, okay, he used to work for the BLM years ago, but then again, if not him, then it's another person whose responses to the questionnaire were even worse than this guy. So I mean, I'm just going to say, I won't go into detail, but the options were limited among, So I do believe that all the defense lawyers were aware that individual juror had worked for the BLM and I believe the Forest Service in the past. But as I recall, the given details, I shouldn't go deep into that, but I'll just say that your options are limited. When you're trying to select a jury, you're saying, well, maybe he'd be better than that other person, So, you use your strikes. You try to use your peremptory strikes wisely,
right?
And sometimes you don't strike the ones that really should be stricken.
Right, but I know that you folks asked for that juror to be removed, for cause.
I'd have to. I probably have notes on that, but it's been so long. It seems like it's been a lifetime ago. I forget so many of the.
I know, it's every day. It's a kaleidoscope. What's going on in that courtroom?
Yeah.
And how did you feel? Because when Deborah Venatucci asked about the government employees, especially Breitzig and stuff, that were there coaching the government witnesses, and she was removed from the courthouse for even asking for a supervisor.
Yeah. I followed all of that. Apparently, the people who were in the audience caught some of the government's witnesses just blatantly looking over at some of the high-level Justice Department officials who were in the courtroom. And I don't know exactly, but apparently there was some signaling to the witnesses that was going on. And when the person that you talked about, Deborah, went and talked to a U.S. Marshal about it, instead of the U.S. Marshals doing anything about it, they threw her out of the courthouse.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's just shocking. I mean, they threatened her, and then they came out, wouldn't give her their names, and it was just an amazing turn of events. Wow, and they were all proud. Oh yeah, they're with us. They're from the government. They're with us. They were very proud of that until she said, "Well, do you know they're giving nonverbal communication to the people on the witness stand?" Oh, that didn't sit too good with them.
let me just say, from my perspective, I was not able to see any of that myself. I was way in the front of the courtroom, but I did notice that several of the government witnesses seemed to be looking over to the, I guess you'd call it the left side of the courtroom a lot. And of course, I was way on the right side, so I couldn't see what they were looking at. So I didn't witness that myself, but it did seem like a lot of the government witnesses kept looking over in that direction for some reason.
Right. Now let's talk about the informants. I mean, 3 of them came out by accident. How did that happen?
Well, and I keep in mind the feds did not reveal any of them, but the Oregon State Police witness who was he testified about the date that Lavoy Finicum was killed, and he had been on duty that night. So he testified from his perspective, and he claimed that Shauna Cox and maybe Ryan Bundy had maybe delayed getting out of the vehicle, and they suggested that was because they were resisting or something. But anyway, that was part of his testimony. But at the very beginning of his testimony, he revealed that he had been tipped off that Ammon Bundy was being driven by an undercover informant, Mark McConnell. And by the way, that even though I can tell you that there were a lot of suspicions that Mark McConnell was undercover, some kind of an informant or something, it was only at that moment that it was let's just say proven in court.
Right.
Yeah, it was verified. And it was not verified by the U.S. Justice Department. It was verified by the Oregon State Police. And by the way, some of us suspect that Oregon State Police was deliberately trying to out the guy as a federal informant. Because, there's been a little bit of conflict between Oregon State Police and the FBI. The FBI actually have been caught firing bullets, and they initially denied that the FBI fired any bullets during the Finicum killing.
Right.
And said they were trying to blame it all on OSP, Oregon State Police. And so I think Oregon State Police legitimately has a little bit of a beef with the FBI for falsely, just fingering them and blaming everything on them. So I don't know. We can speculate as to why that Oregon State Police officer let the cat out of the bag. That
confirmed McConnell.
Yeah.
So how about Fabulous Fabio, John Kilman?
Well, that ultimately is one of the most important parts of the trial. A couple of defense lawyers, and I'll just say a couple that I didn't think were, well, I'll just say this. When you size up a defense lawyer, I don't know what, I shouldn't say this, but I would not have guessed that these 2 women defense lawyers would have ended up being so courageous, heroic, in digging up this John Kilman. And they went, first of all, they started, there was a guy named John Kilman who had been training some of these Malheur militia guys in shooting and pulling people out of cars and everything else.
Hand-to-hand
many
combat.
of the defendants, hand-to-hand combat. And a lot of the defendants and other people suspected he was some kind of an undercover informant of some kind. Just the name John Kilman sounds very strange. Anyway, so a couple of these, Tiffany Harris, who was the standby counsel for Shauna Cox, and the other one was Lisa Maxfield, both wonderful women, by the way. But it was they who actually dug into the question of this John Kilman, and they literally stuck their necks out. And it really, they should get all the credit for it, because they went and they did a reverse white pages, and someone had John Kilman's cell number, and they found that link to a name called Fabio. And then they looked up the name Fabio. I mean, literally, they just did great detective work, and their staffs did great detective work. Finally called up some ex-wives and things, and sent some subpoenas, down to, Arizona and Nevada, and actually subpoenaed this Fabio guy. This is out of the blue. I mean, again, these 2 defense lawyers Lisa Maxfield and Tiffany Harris, and I'll just give them all the praise they are entitled to. They
I
found
have to
this guy.
Roger, I have to say, I wouldn't usually give you 5 cents for a public pretender. I mean, they're not worth to me what the paper that their law degrees are written on usually. But some people have really been impressive lawyers in this, and I think Matthew Schindler's probably got the most improved attorney award from me on this case.
Well, listen, they all rose to the top of their game, and I'd like to take credit for pushing them that way, But I would listen. I don't know what credit Marcus Mumford is deserving of the greatest credit. I mean, that guy absolutely. When I first saw him in practice, I thought, well, how could Ammon Bundy be laying his entire fate in the hands of this guy? You should see him in live. He stutters so horribly, the worst stutter I've ever seen.
Yeah, and people say it's very distracting initially.
Well,
but then you get used to it.
Well, and I realized within about a day of watching him that man is a genius, and he's absolutely committed to human freedom, and he was committed to this case. Yeah, my hat is off to all those defense lawyers. None of them dropped the ball. They all rose to the highest levels.
Well, all right. I've got you off track on Fabulous Fabio. So when he took the stand for the defense, was he considered a hostile witness?
Oh my God! Well, listen. Let me just set the stage. Okay, these two women defense lawyers had subpoenaed him on a hunch. I mean, keep in mind when they sent those subpoenas, they didn't know. All they knew is that he was using a different name. They didn't know. But so blindly, we subpoenaed him up to Oregon, and he was met at the airport by defense lawyer staff, who my understanding is he when he came to the airport, he was very brusque, let's just say, and so we didn't even know what we were getting. And then the next day, these events we were literally played a hunch, and the hunch played off because he hired an appointed attorney himself, and that appointed attorney came into the courtroom and said, "You don't want this guy to testify for you. He's not going to help you at all." And we were just buffaloed and threatened and bullied. Everyone told us not to call this guy. The prosecutor said, "Oh, well, if you call him, we reserve the right to recall him on rebuttal." And, we were just threatened. Like everyone was telling us not to call this guy as a witness.
Yeah, that sounds a little Shakespearean to me. Thou doth protest too much. Well,
Tiffany Harris, again, standby counsel for Shauna Cox, and a great lawyer. I mean, she had the guts to go through with it. She put him on the stand and asked him about 5 or 6 questions. Did you go to the Malheur? Did you train people in hand-to-hand and shooting? Were you reporting for the government? And just basic questions. He responded, yes, 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 yes. Nothing further. So we got out the fact that this guy had been paid to go to the occupation as a government informant of some kind. By the way, we still don't know all the details. Some people say he was Blackwater or something, and who knows? But anyway, we don't even really know what agency or which office or anything else. But he admitted on the stand that his name was not John Tillman, it was Fabio Menaggio or something.
Menaggio.
And that he had actually trained Jeff Banta, one of the defendants, to pull people out of cars, which was some of the most damning evidence against Banta. Now just think about that. There was some of the most damning evidence against Banta, that he had been trained in shooting and hand-to-hand and all this, and then it is revealed that, in fact, the very trainer was an undercover government operative. Just think about that.
Oh, yeah, and that's how they got, the great photo ops. Okay, everybody smile for the cameras. You're out there shooting. And so all their evidence of all those rounds that they found, Fabulous Fabio had set that all up for them.
Yep. It's at least even now we don't know all there was so much going on that even now, listen, in this February trial in Oregon, the second part of this Oregon prosecution, in which defendants like Jason Patrick and Jake Ryan and Sean Anderson are going to be on trial, I just hope that more of this kind of detail gets revealed.
Well, I put in the paper, the judge was going to look over the unredacted list, and I say there's no way that she's going to give up, even though the government has thousands of informants, they're not going to give up 15 because, man, that 15 could take down a lot of patriot kind of organizations and thing. I guarantee that.
Yeah, well, who knows? All we know is that the level of surveillance and undercover operations against the American people in this country right now is worse than East Germany ever. I mean, that is the level that we in America have descended to. It's worse than East Germany at its lowest point.
Well, I say it's worse than Stalinist Russia. Stalin didn't have the technology that they're employing now. This is totally Bolshevik all the way.
Yep.
Well, we have someone now, Roger. I promised you a half hour tonight, but I'm reneging on that deal just because it's a new ball game here. Can you stay with me?
Well, I can go another couple minutes.
All right, very good. But a friend of ours asked me I offered to dial him in, and so I know you know Tom Davis, and I'm going.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm dialing him in right now. He wants to join us. Let me make sure
I thought about calling Tom earlier today. Isn't that funny?
There we go. So I know you folks know each other. And then the last informant that came out was Mama Bear.
Oh, yeah. And again, that came out by accident. That wasn't the U.S., the prosecutors did not reveal that.
Hey, Tom Davis, welcome to Sacred Cow Barbecue. Your friend Roger Roots is here with us. We're talking about the case. I think you've been listening.
Yes. Hello, Roger. How are you, my friend?
Oh, very good, Tom. Good to hear your voice, man.
Yeah, same here. Great day. American justice.
It really is. I'll tell you, it really is.
Now we got to bring the corruption to trial, bring corruption to justice. From David Ward here in Harney County to Steve Grasky, all the way to Kate Brown in Oregon, Salem, to Loretta Lynch, Valerie Jarrett, and all that conspired to kill Lavoie, an innocent man, with an illegal roadblock and an illegal kill.
Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel, Tom.
Yeah. I don't know if, Tom, have you seen the Governor Kate Brown released a statement on Twitter today, and she says she's very disappointed in the jury's verdict.
I'm sure she is.
Also, David Ward released one that he is very disappointed in the verdict too. Excuse me, the corruption of these people to cause a murder of an innocent man. They should be prosecuted to the fullest length of the law from everybody involved.
Well, I totally agree.
These people cannot be above the law. From Hillary Clinton, Comey, anybody that violates the law should be prosecuted by the law of the people. And it's time the American people stand up to bring the corruption to the courts, even corrupt judges, to the justice they deserve.
Well, that would be a good thing.
Well,
I'm off my pedestal.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I think there were a lot of people crying today. I'll tell you, I shed a few tears myself.
Oh, what a relief. But here's the thing.
Roger.
Can I hold on for just a second, Tom? I want to ask him, Dave Ward, just perjured himself left, right, and center on the stand. And then his cousin gets on the stand and says he felt no way threatened. They barricaded the courthouse in the jail in Burns just to stage the narrative.
Why was we overrun by military style? We had 700 people from every sheriff's department pretty near in Oregon came to soak their handkerchiefs in the blood of the Patriots. Why? The Patriots have done nothing. Where is the ACLU? Where is all the people that were crying about the poor terrorists that threatened to kill us, kill every American that was waterboarded? I have not heard the outrage that I heard because of 3 terrorists that gave us the information we needed to go after terrorist organizations that were out to kill us, that was waterboarded, but yet lived and survived and was not harmed in no way but waterboarded. Where's those people that was crying that it was unjust punishment? Ryan Bundy was beat up. David Fry was beat up as a free man today by U.S. Marshals. Literally abused police brutality. Where's Black Lives Matter that says they care about the people being abused by the police? Where's the outrage from all these so-called goody-goody two-shoes? Oh, yeah, I forgot. This is white privilege, so we deserve to be abused because we are white and we are privileged. There is no privilege.
David Fry is a Japanese, American, a mixed race person. I don't understand why he was beat up. I don't get that. And he should file a suit on that. Do you think, Roger?
Well, absolutely. I don't have all the details. I've just heard some accounts of that. I don't know exactly where that occurred.
Okay. Well, listen, I've got to tell everyone, I've got to take a little bit of time here to say you're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. This is Sacred Cow Barbecue. My guests tonight are Dr. Roger Roots and Mr. Tom Davis from Harney County, who's been a guest here before and always a good friend of the show. And just let everyone know we're volunteers and listener supported, so please go over to Freedom Slips and buy something. We appreciate it. And so, Rod, and I also have to do a little thing. Roger, your book, The Conviction Factory, is one of my favorites. I recommend it to everyone. I actually had a man who came to fix the sprinklers working for the landscape company, nice young man, and I did a good job. And I said, oh, did you go to school for landscape? He says, no, I went to school for criminal justice. I want to be a police officer. Man, I'm sorry, I gave your book away.
Well, all right.
I said, I got to save this young man. So if you haven't read Roots' book, you need to.
Well, thank you so much.
No, it's amazing how we have fallen, and it's all because of the 14th Amendment and all that, but I'm not going to get on my horse about that. So, Tom, all your points are very well taken. So Dave Ward's cousin, how did he come off to the jury?
I think he came off good.
Yeah. He was very, very, rock solid witness. I can tell you that. And basically, he was the cousin. I forget what town he lives in, but it's a distant town in Oregon. And he came over one day during the occupation to chit chat or just to talk to his cousin Dave Ward, sheriff of Harney County, and had tried to go visit him, and found that the place was turned into a fortress. FBI agents and just a police presence, such that he couldn't even get into the office. By the way, almost no one could get in to see Sheriff Ward at that time. But finally, let word get in that he was Sheriff Ward's cousin, and I guess Dave Ward then said, "Oh, okay, well he can come in," and so he was allowed to go through the East Berlin security, and got in and talked to him, and he basically said that Dave Ward had said, "Oh, I'm not even afraid of these Bundys; they're not even threats at all." And so that was sort of an admission that the whole thing was being it was just being promoted and over exaggerated.
Yeah, it was just a cartoon, really.
David Ward's office was taken over by the FBI. He became a pawn of the FBI, Brett Zinger. And my question is, David Ward did dereliction of duty, not responding to 911 calls. Then why did they pay $2,000 to the Dunbars, to Kyle and to his dad Andy Tucker, and to Andy Dunbar, because they would not respond to 911, so they would not call 911 again? Excuse me, the sheriff's job is to respond to all 911 calls, no matter how frivolous they are, to respond and take action to assure that citizen of Harney County is safe. They chose not to respond to several Butch Eaton called 911 on the 2nd of January. And they chose not to respond to that call to find out what that call was about. We have a direct dereliction of duty, which is a punishable offense under the laws of the state of Oregon. A sheriff nitpicking which calls to make, to respond to, is unheard of. How did he know that somebody's life was not in danger? How did he know there was not an emergency situation that needed to be handled right then and there? Because the FBI told him not to respond, to give the FBI jurisdiction in Harney County, so he chose to do a political agenda?
What do you think of that, Roger?
This is a political situation.
Mm-hmm.
Roger?
Yeah, well, listen, I'm. It's funny. I'm actually I'm writing an article myself at the moment, trying to. I might do another thing, maybe LouRockwell.com, or might print my article tomorrow. So I've got to get off it. And
can I have that for the Stampede?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay, we're I think we're about the only print media that's been covering the trial.
Well, you're certainly the only one I know of in western Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. and the absolute only one in Gordon.
I'll tell you what my son said about the Stampede when he reads the Stampede every time it comes. And he said, "Dad, it's nice to see an honest newspaper."